Goodness gracious, it is a packed house tonight. You are a popular man. I am excited. Welcome everyone to our lecture tonight, Allensworth, the Town That Refuses to Die. I'm Professor Leslie Keel. I teach history here at Porterville College, and I am the coordinator of CHAP. The Porterville College Cultural and Historical Awareness Program, as we like to call it, CHAP, was organized in 2002 to enhance students' awareness of certain important aspects of our society to which they may previously have had little to no exposure. A theme is chosen by CHAP members each school year, and faculty members across the campus are encouraged to integrate elements of that theme into their coursework. By subtly saturating students with information about the chosen topic throughout the year, the awareness of the entire campus community is elevated. Our theme for the next 2 years, fall 2024 to spring 2026, was voted on by over 200 students. That theme is Don't Stop Believing, all things belief systems, spirituality, religion, and secular humanism. We will be exploring the different ways humans have answered and wrestled with the big questions. Who are we and why are we here? I hope you will join us at future CHAP events during the semester, including our upcoming event in honor of Women's History Month. On March 7th, 7 p.m. here in the theater, we will be hearing from Captain Jenna Carson, chaplain in the U.S. Air Force, as she speaks on her experience preaching in prisons as the first female chaplain for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I want to quickly thank our maintenance staff, CHAP committee, Roger Perez, Daisy Rodriguez, and President Monterez for all their work and support in making these events possible. A special thank you to Umoja for co-sponsoring this event. Our speaker today is Rev Dennis Hutson. Rev Hutson is an ordained United Methodist minister of 45 years, serving in Porterville since January 1st of 2024. He served congregations in Chicago, Los Angeles, and Phoenix prior to joining the military. He served as an active duty chaplain in the United States Air Force for 22 years, retiring in 2007. After retiring from the Air Force, he served a congregation in Las Vegas for 10 years. His mother, Nettie Morrison, lived in Allensworth since 1979. When her health began to decline, he moved to live with and care for her in 2017. He and his wife purchased a 60-acre farm in 2007 to be an economic engine to rejuvenate the community in Allensworth. While he is still a pastor of congregations at Porterville First and Grand Avenue churches, he is also a farmer. He has been married to Patricia for 48 years, and they have 3 adult children. A quick disclaimer before we get started. The views and opinions expressed in this presentation are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect the views of Porterville College or its affiliates. Once Rev Hutson is done speaking, we will open up for questions from the audience. Our event tonight will end roughly 8 p.m. Once the event is over, I will have proof of attendance cards for those who need one. And with that, please give a warm welcome to Rev Dennis Hutson.
Well, hello everyone. Hello. All right, I got the microphone on.
Thank you.
It is indeed an honor and a privilege for me to be invited to speak to you this evening. I thank Professor Anne Marie Wagstaff and Porterville College for this invitation. It is especially important to me as a relatively newcomer to Porterville. I have been a pastor here for 1 year now, and I am still learning about the community. This engagement affords you the opportunity to know a little bit about me. Hopefully this is the beginning of a relationship. Now, to the matter for which I was invited, Allensworth, the town that refuses to die. To preface this presentation, it is important to note that I spent my teenage years growing up in Los Angeles from 1966 to 1971. While Black history was incorporated into curriculum during that time, I had not ever heard of Allensworth, the man or the town. The town is about 30 miles north of Bakersfield and 140 miles north of Los Angeles. I had some of those Black history courses. It was not until my mother, Nettie Morrison, showed our family a plot of land that she would buy in Allensworth in 1976 that I first heard the name. Much of the history will come from an article written by B. Gordon Wheeler that originally appeared in the February 2000 issue of Wild West. Many other articles addressing the history of Allensworth seem to have gleaned information from that publication. Although a small, dusty town where residents constantly battled heat and drought may seem an unlikely setting for a heroic effort at colony building and racial self-determination, this community of race pioneers, with its commitment to limiting the parameters of prejudice, served as a beacon of hope to Blacks in the Golden State and across the nation. The community, Allensworth, belied the notion of Black inferiority and in so doing generated excitement, hope, and confidence. As soon as our race gets property in the form of real estate, of intelligence, of high Christian character, it will find that it is going to receive the recognition which it has not thus far received, said Colonel Allen Allensworth, the community's founder. This town and its founder deserve a kinder fate than relegation to the historical footnote. Now let me just say, when you talk about race and you talk about conditions of the past, people feel uneasy. That's not my intention. My intention is to share some information so that we can learn from it and know how to go forward. All right, enough of my footnote. For Blacks in California, the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th was nadir. The U.S. Supreme Court anointed racism's handmaiden, segregation, as the law of the land. A form of economic bondage known as sharecropping re-enslaved the mass of Southern Blacks as well as poor whites. It was this atmosphere of uncertainty and discrimination that encouraged Allensworth and others to work toward a creation of a race colony in California. Guiding this venture were the fervor and the dreams of Allen Allensworth. Although born into slavery in Louisville, Kentucky in April of 1842, Allensworth refused to submit to that degrading institution. During his youth, despite laws forbidding education of slaves, Allensworth mastered reading and writing, whetting his lifelong appetite for learning. After 2 unsuccessful escape attempts, he finally succeeded during the initial years of the Civil War. Recognizing the importance of that struggle, Allensworth wanted to participate. For several months in 1862, the former slave worked as a civilian aide to the 44th Illinois Volunteer Infantry. But this service did not satisfy Allensworth. On April 3rd, 1863, he became a seaman, first class, of the Union Navy. During the remaining years of the Civil War, he served on gunboats such as Queen City and Pittsburgh. He left the Navy in April of 1865 with the rank of first class petty officer. During Reconstruction, Allensworth underwent a religious conversion and decided to study theology at Roger Williams University in Nashville, Tennessee. While at the university, he met and later married Josephine Level. After completing his studies, Allensworth maintained several pulpits in and around his native Louisville, Kentucky. Allensworth's success as a minister propelled him into politics. He was one of Kentucky's delegates to the Republican National Convention in 1880 and 1884. It was in 1882, however, that a black soldier came to Allensworth for help, complaining about the lack of black chaplains in the all-black military units, the Buffalo Soldiers. The soldier urged Allensworth to help recruit blacks to fill those positions. Allensworth did more than recruit. He decided to become a chaplain himself, like me. He could prove. Reportedly, Allensworth hoped that as a chaplain, he could improve the lot of the average black soldier, help the race in its battle to win support, and at the same time provide a secure future for his family. Thus motivated, Allensworth launched a concerted effort to gain appointment to the 24th Infantry in 1884. Allensworth's considered exertions were rewarded by Grover Cleveland. In 1886, he was appointed chaplain of the 24th Infantry with the rank of captain. For 20 years, Allensworth ministered to the needs of his flock as the 24th moved from Fort Apache in Arizona Territory to Camp Reynolds in California to Fort Missoula in Montana. During those years, the captain not only saw the troops' spiritual needs, but also worked to raise their overall educational level. All in all, he was quite successful. When he retired in 1906 at the rank of lieutenant colonel, Allensworth and his family relocated to Los Angeles. But an ordinary retirement was unthinkable for this man, so involved with the struggle to improve the position of blacks. Not least among the motives of the colonel was his desire to change white attitudes toward blacks. Allensworth continued to promote the black race and promulgate the teaching of Booker T. Washington. The colonel, an ardent supporter of the Tuskegee, Booker T. Washington was from Tuskegee, believed that if the race was to rise, blacks had to be willing to do for themselves, to rely on black self-help efforts rather than on white philanthropy. To spread these and other ideas, Allensworth embarked on a speaking tour to inspire and educate blacks. Allensworth's idea, however, his ideas were, however, restricted to theoretical discussion on the lecture circuit until he met William Payne, a gifted teacher and university graduate living in Pasadena, California. Although different in age and temperament, Payne and Allensworth were kindred souls in the struggle to improve their race. Recognizing the need for unusual measures, Allensworth and Payne plotted to the creation of an all-black community, a colony of orderly and industrious blacks who could control their own destiny. The two men believed that in such a community, free and deliberating effects and limits of racism, blacks could demonstrate that they were capable of organizing and managing their own affairs. The colony would prove to all Americans that black people were worthy of their rights and responsibilities as citizens. The soldier and the scholar envisioned a black community that would make opportunities for blacks, opportunities being central to the philosophies of both men. They believed that the disappointing status of the race nearly half a century after emancipation was due to circumstances rather than color. Yet most of the country, then imbued with the wisdom and eugenics, believed that blacks were intrinsically inferior and therefore incapable of contributing to the American nation of its road to greatness. White Californians, of course, held this same belief. Payne and Allensworth believed that given the opportunity, blacks could live up to their potential, and in the process, destroy that malicious fallacy. Their colony, they believed, would provide that very opportunity. Allensworth, California, belied the myth of black genetic inferiority by providing the opportunity for hardworking, orderly black Californians to control their own destiny. It was envisioned that the colony would eventually provide a home for the soldiers of America's 4 all-black regiments. This meant much to the colonel. To transform their ideas into reality, on June 30, 1908, Allensworth and Payne created the California Colony and Home Promoting Association. A relationship was established with the Pacific Farming Company. This white-owned rural land development firm offered the association prime land in Solito, a rural area in Tulare County, 30 miles north of Bakersfield. The site was renamed Allensworth after the colonel. It was a depot station on the main Santa Fe Railroad line from Los Angeles to San Francisco. The soil was fertile, the water seemingly abundant, and the acreage not only plentiful, but also reasonably priced. But within 5 years, the Pacific Farming Company would become the colony's adversary in water controversy. You see how history seems to keep? Isn't that what we do? All right. Its incorporation papers state that the Pacific Farming Company was organized in 1908 to develop rural land into town and village sites. The 1912 through 1915 period marked the apex of Allensworth as a thriving community. Black newspapers throughout the nation noticed the tiny hamlet. The New York Age chronicled its growth. The Washington Bee congratulated all involved with the enterprise. And the California Eagle gleefully exclaimed that there is not a single white person having anything to do with the affairs of the colony. Even the Los Angeles Times took note, labeling Allensworth an ideal Negro settlement. The national black community was starved for race victories. Just somebody to say something positive about them. Okay. Voting registration records in 1915 list an impressive array of occupations of residents, including farmers, storekeepers, carpenters, nurses, and more, all suggesting that the colony's business and industrial output was prodigious. Allensworth's grain, warehouses, cattle pens, and storage bins served the needs of the local farmers and the railroad. Business enterprises developed by the colonists included the large poultry farms, a 10-room, 75-cent per night hotel, that also served as a restaurant, a large general store, a cement manufacturing enterprise, plaster and carpentry shops, and sugar beet agriculture. All this industry was geared to prove to the white man beyond a shadow of a doubt that the black man was capable of self-respect and self-control. Politically, Allensworth became a member of the county school district, the regional library system, and a voting precinct that elected Oscar Overe, the first black justice of the peace in post-Mexican California. Along with the school, the library was the focus of many community activities. The library became the hub of activity in Allensworth residents, reflecting the founders' concern for self-education, relentlessly exploring its holdings. The First Baptist Church held regular services in what was described as a neat church edifice, while the first AME Zion membership worshiped in the school. And in 1916, plans were made to erect a structure for the Methodist congregation. Based on the model pioneered by Booker T. Washington in Alabama, Allensworth envisioned a Tuskegee of the West that would provide practical training in such technical fields as agriculture, carpentry, and masonry to black youths in California and the Southwest. But it was not to be. Colonel Allensworth and Payne had been duped by the Pacific Farming Company and let down by others. While the county approved the venture, the state legislature unanimously disapproved the facility. Talking about education. Almost immediately, the Allensworth colony faced several crises that led to its eventual decline. In 1914, the Santa Fe Railroad, never a supporter of this black community, built a spur line to neighboring Alpar, thus allowing most rail traffic to bypass Allensworth and depriving the town of the lucrative carrying trade. Initially, the rail line refused to change the name of the depot from Solito to Allensworth. A more serious problem was the Santa Fe's employment practices. The corporation refused to hire blacks as the manager or ticket agents of the station located in the colony. And despite repeated letters of recrimination, the railroad continued to restrict black people to menial labor. Just bent on doing business as usual. Moreover, the community continued to reel under the long-standing water problem. You just can't get away from water. A part of the initial purchase, the Pacific Farming Company had agreed to supply sufficient water for irrigation, regardless of how large the town grew. But as early as 1910, the Pacific Farming Company was failing to honor its commitment. Eventually, the community sought and gained legal redress. The control of the Allensworth Water Company passed to the town. But listen to this. But it was Pyrrhic victory at best, because the town now owned an outdated water system and had the unexpected burden of massive unpaid taxes. Not until 1918 was the community able to rid itself of the tax burden and begin to upgrade the pumping machinery. But by then, the water table had dropped too low and the equipment was ineffective. But the single most critical factor in the community's decline was the death of Allen Allensworth in 1914. On September 13, Allensworth was in the foothill city of Monrovia to speak at a church. Shortly after he left the train station, crossing the street, he was struck by a speeding motorcycle and died the next morning. Riding the motorcycle were two white youths, E.S. White and W.F. Ray. But after the colonel's family filed a legal complaint, the two were later arrested. The Allensworth community was devastated. Although Payne and Over assumed the leadership of the colony, no one could replace the colonel. Without Allensworth's spiritual guidance and leadership, the community began to disintegrate. The lure of jobs in Oakland and in other war industry sites further decimated the town's population, and in 1966, arsenic was found in the water supply. This seemed to sound the death knell for Allensworth. Yet the Colonel's dream would not die. Beginning in 1969, various community organizations led by Ed Pope and Eugene and Ruth Larustamy expressed interest and support in creating a state historic site in Allensworth. By 1973, the state had acquired the land, and the advisory committee under the direction of Dr. Kenneth Good began its work. In May of 1976, the State Department of Parks and Recreation approved the plans to develop the park. And on October 6, 1976, the park was indeed dedicated. So the Colonel's dream, if not his colony, endures. While the colony existed as a symbol of hope for less than 20 years, it assumes greater significance in the context of the political and racial pre-World War I America. From that era of segregation characterized by vitriolic racism and the extra-legal atrocities of Judge Lynch. Now, I don't know if people know what that simply means, Judge Lynch, but what that's talking about is this hanging of people and the atrocities perpetrated against people without any legal standing. That's what it means. Arose the ambitious leadership of Booker T. Washington. His policies of accommodation to white racism mixed with his exhortation for black self-help was virtuous living, were clarion calls for such a black community. Certainly many early Allensworth residents agreed with Washington when he said, one farm bought, one house built, one home sweetly and intellectually kept, one man who is the largest taxpayer or who has the largest banking account, one school or one church maintained, one factory running successfully, one garden profitably cultivated, one patient cured by a Negro doctor, one sermon well preached, one life clearly lived, will tell more in our favor than all the abstract eloquence that can be summoned to plead our cause. My mother, Nettie Morrison. At the outset of this presentation, I mentioned that my mother made me aware of Allensworth. She purchased a 1-acre parcel with a small structure on it that she called the Leaning Post. She was very happy and proud to own that piece of land and moving to Allensworth. My siblings and I didn't see much but many dilapidated houses and mobile homes. We disappointedly asked, "Why are you moving here? There's nothing out here." Her response to us was that she wanted to be part of something that was bigger than her. My mother wanted to participate in something significant and make a difference. Nettie was born in Denison, Texas. She moved to Allensworth in 1979 after opening a bakery in Wasco for several years. It was in Wasco that Nettie served as a member of the Allensworth Study Panel and created the Colonel Allensworth State Historic Park. She quickly became an advocate for Allensworth. She saw issues and concerns that needed to be addressed and immediately got to work. By this time, Allensworth was approximately 50% black and 50% Latino. Many of the residents began to tell my mother that God sent her there to help them. Nettie was the founder of the Friends of Allensworth, which comprises supporters throughout America. She served as chairperson of the Allensworth Community Council and member of the Community Services District. Nettie saw the need to establish a food distribution program for Allensworth. The town has no stores and is considered a food desert. The nearest supermarkets are in Allensworth, Delano and Early Mark, which are about 15 miles away, one way. Food is distributed monthly by Food Link Food Distribution and Central California Food Bank. Nettie organized and coordinated the annual festival celebrated at the Colonel Allensworth State Historic Park. She also was concerned about the spiritual presence in Allensworth. As the community declined, there was no active church or worship services. She invited ministers to come to Allensworth and lead worship services from her home. Then she raised money to have a church structure that was in the Colonel Allensworth State Historic Park moved from within the park into the community that would be free of park regulation. This facility is now the Allensworth Christian Church. In 2007, Nettie was informed that plans were being approved to allow 2 mega dairies to locate very close to Colonel Allensworth State Historic Park. She promptly contacted allies, sounding the alarm and raising concern. Busloads of supporters turned out to the Board of Supervisors meeting to voice their concerns about the negative impact that the dairies would have on Allensworth. In the summer of 2007, the California Assembly voted to establish a 2.5-mile dairy-free zone around Colonel Allensworth State Historic Park. People, organized people, make a difference. All right. Because of Nettie's efforts and love for the community of Allensworth, she was dubbed by residents, supporters, public service agencies, and local officials as Mayor of Allensworth. She wanted her children to continue the struggle to build Allensworth, and this truly becomes a family affair. My twin sister, Denise Kadar, is the president of the Allensworth Progressive Association, which is the governing body of the town from its inception. This is a nonprofit organization, and I say that, you'll hear in a minute why I said that. Sherry Hunter, another sister of mine, right under me and my twin sister, is the president of the Allensworth Community Services District. The Allensworth Community Service District is authorized by the county to award water meters, bill for water usage, manage the street lights, and historical cemetery. My youngest sister's husband, Melvin Santillo, is the pastor of the Allensworth Christian Church. And my twin sister's husband, Coyote Kadara, is the school board president. I haven't said anything about myself. But what I will say is I started the church. I was the first one preaching there to start the church. But Tack Farm, I remember visiting my mother and noticed that not much had changed. I thought to myself, why doesn't the government do something? And I'm a preacher now. The Spirit of God said to me, why don't you do something? Well, so now I'm thinking, oh, I got to spend money. Okay. From that moment, I started thinking about what could be done. I was completing my last overseas assignment for the Air Force. I called my mother from South Korea one day as usual, and she informed me that a farmer in the area was starting to sell his farmland. She wanted to know if I was interested in buying some. I said yes. During that time, I had the opportunity to do an online MBA degree with Western Governors University. I had completed the coursework but had to submit a capstone project, a thesis. Sitting up late one night, I prayed that God would reveal to me what to research. I was told, research rabbit farming. So I did. The idea is to grow alfalfa, grow rabbits on a commercial scale for meat production, New Zealand white rabbits, Take the rabbit manure and use with composting. Add red worms to help break down the compost. Use the compost to fertilize crop production. Feed alfalfa to the rabbits. This is what you call sustainable agriculture. Feed alfalfa to the rabbits. Each component becomes a revenue stream. In our yard around the house, we have several vegetable gardens. As the demand for vegetables increase, we will decrease the acreage of alfalfa and add vegetables on the farm. Maybe we should produce eggs. Oh, you got that, huh? The intent behind Tack Farm is for it to be an economic engine for our impoverished community. We were visited one Saturday in October 2017, by a group of interested supporters of our effort. By a group interested in supporting our efforts to improve conditions in Allensworth. Some were professors from UC Davis and philanthropists. Kat Taylor was among those visitors. She's the president and owner of Beneficial Bank. Her Good Life Pledge awarded seed money for much of the Allensworth Progressive Association for what they have accomplished. At the conclusion of the visit, a professor from UC Davis asked, "Is there anything that we can do for you?" My brother-in-law, Coyote, and I thought he said this in a flippant way. He said, "Yeah, do you know anyone who can get arsenic out of our water?" The professor, you can see the wheels turning. He was thinking. And he said, "I think I do." And do you know, within about a month and a half, we got a phone call from Dr. Ashok Gadgil from UC Berkeley of the Gadgil Lab. Dr. Gadgil developed a technology with using well water that successfully removes arsenic from water at a low cost. He had done 2 field trials on our farm and is now preparing for a 3rd. He has developed a more updated, efficient system now. The arsenic levels exceeded 300 parts per billion. The standard is 10 parts per billion or less. The Gadgil system got arsenic levels to under 2 parts per billion. Sodium levels, though, are high, partly due to overpumping. The California legislature and governor, in the governor's revised budget of 2022, awarded Allensworth $40 million. $12 million was awarded to the Allensworth Progressive Association. See, that's why I mentioned nonprofit organization. The money was awarded to the Allensworth Progressive Association for a regenerative, sustainable agricultural effort and a resiliency center. The remaining $28 million goes to the Colonel Allensworth State Historic Park for maintenance and improvements. Now, do you see that Allensworth is a town that refuses to die? Yeah. We are here to realize the dream and vision. We're making it happen. Oh, now, I'm going to say thank you, but I want my sister, Sherry, who's the president of the Allensworth Community Services District, to stand. Well, stand up, Sherry. There she is. So. She's not a celebrity. Goodness, I asked her to stand because if you have any questions about water, ask her. And then my nephew, my twin sister's son, Stand up to Cole. He is working with the money that has been awarded to Allensworth and overseeing projects to make that happen. Okay? So I just want you to, if you got any questions about any of that, you ask them. Am I throwing them under the bus? Okay. Thank you all for being here and for at least listening to the presentation. You got any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I was at the Tulare and I saw your nephew there. He represented Allensworth fabulously. And so is that some of the money that you're talking about? He was talking about community centers and things for the youth. Is that where that money is going to be?
Part of it, but I'll let him speak to that.
Okay.
Oh, wait for me. This is the best part of the night. Let a short white lady run.
Thank you for your question, and thank you guys for having us today. A lot of the funding is going towards, well, the 1.6 is going towards a resiliency center in Allensworth. As my uncle mentioned earlier, Allensworth is in a food desert, so the resiliency center is going to offer a restaurant, it's going to offer a store, it's going to offer resiliency space, heating and cooling space for our community and these weather extremes that we experience here. It's going to offer a medical center. Okay, so these are, we're working with renowned architect Art Dyson, protege of Frank Lloyd Wright, and we're really excited. Some really nice designs have been being cooked up in the community. Also, we're working on the $10 million that we got is going towards our enterprise, our farm enterprise projects, where we're working on regenerative agriculture, remediating the soil, growing the soil, because Mother Nature doesn't need pesticides, herbicides, all the other sides, right, that hurt us to grow food. The forest doesn't need fertilizer, you know. So we're working on developing that program. We have a beginning farmer training program where we're teaching our community and residents and other local community members how to do this, you know. This land has maintained water and healthy soil for thousands of years, and just a few hundred years we've messed stuff up. So we've got to look back to look forward. So that's what we're working on. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Several years ago, you had docents who were offering tours through
Yes.
Allensworth, and I took several groups of elementary school students.
Mhm.
Do you still have those docents working?
Yes, we do. We have some. Anybody want to speak to that?
I don't need a microphone. I didn't know if we were finishing up.
But they record.
Yes, they record
Oh,
it.
okay, I'm sorry.
88 yells at me if I don't.
Yes, we still do have docents in the state park. 4 times a year we have events. We have a Black History Month event in February. We have a May festival. We have Juneteenth in June, and a rededication in October. And all the docents are available then. Otherwise, if you want to view the park and visit the buildings and things like that, you would just reach out to the state parks and they'll have one of their park rangers open the buildings and give you a personal tour. You just gotta do it in advance.
So I'm kind of interested in the personal side here. So what I'm gonna ask you to answer, because you know the answer to this, just like he does. So what got your mother interested? How did you even hear about Allensworth? You were living in LA at the time, your family, and then what? She wanted to go to Allensworth, but whoa, how did she even hear about it?
Remember, she was in Nettie's Bakery. Go ahead, Sherry.
She owned a bakery in Wasco, and one of her in-laws that lived in Wasco knew about Allensworth, and they took her out there one time, and she started finding out more about it, and she said, "I want to be a part of this. There's something about this. I want to be a part of it." And that's when she decided to go and purchase the land and to move out there. And like my brother said, we were scattered. I think he might have been in Arizona. I had another brother that might have been in Korea at the time. My sister, his twin, was in Half Moon Bay. I was in the Inland Empire. We were scattered everywhere, but every time my mother said, I got a project, I need y'all's help, we would come. And we were really baffled when why would you sell your house to move out?
In LA.
There's nothing here. But I can tell you, every single summer, her grandkids was there with her. And even since she has passed, when you drive down the freeways, the road, Big Mommy took me here, Big Mommy took me there. She taught them about the San Joaquin Valley. All of it. All the little canals, she took them fishing. She would come back home, fry that fish, and have, sell fish dinners. And with the money she made from that, she was able to move a church that the park didn't want it to be active in. She was able to buy an acre of land and move it out of the park into the community so that the community could be fed.
Well, it's a testament to your family that you've already done a lot, really.
It's a testament to my mother, because we like,
Your mother
what?
raised you, you know.
We're her offspring.
Yes, yes. We didn't have a choice. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing, but she was like E.F. Hutton. When she spoke, everybody listened.
Anyone else? But you see somebody else? Oh.
Is there still land available? Is the community growing? Are there people saying, I want to buy a lot of land, I want to build a house there, or are there homes for sale? What is the real estate? What does that look like?
There may be parcels of land, but there are no homes. I mean, that's why you have these mobile homes, because people bring them in there, and they're not new. They bring them in and refurbish them, but anyway, go ahead, Sherry.
I'll speak to that. Being over the community service district, most of the lots in Allensworth are an acre. All of them are acres. And you have, he talked about water earlier. Water was the downfall of Allensworth. The biggest downfall of Allensworth. Allensworth had artesian wells when they first went out there, the water coming up out of the ground. And there's still one in the park, but the park capped it off. But today, that's the same issue that we face in Allensworth. We have, in 2012, we were given the money for a feasibility study to drill a new well in Allensworth. Dennis talked about arsenic being in the water. That's under Allensworth. And it's naturally occurring because it used to be a lake, the Tule Lake, all in that area. So our wells come from 3 miles east, but that was in 2012, we did the feasibility study. It's 2025, and they haven't moved a shovel of dirt yet. The town is constantly growing. People that purchase acres, now they're like, oh, well, I'll buy a trailer and bring it in and I'll rent it out. The water system that we have has a 40-gallon storage tank.
It's not much,
40,000 gallon storage tank.
which is still not much.
40,000 gallon storage tank. The system, the infrastructure to the system was built in the 60s. And back then, the population may have been 200 or 300. And it wasn't adequate then, and it's worse now. And every time someone move into town, drag a trailer into town, and move into town, then they come to us saying we need water. It's our worst nightmare that any one of those new connectors we put on that system could bring the whole thing down. And that has happened before, and we are currently getting bottled water sent in from the state. But we did get a construction grant to put in the new well, and that included a 500,000 gallon storage tank, which is a blessing, but it's like putting on new shoes with dirty feet. And I say that because we have not got any money to do new infrastructure. So the delivery system that bring it from that storage tank into our homes is still old and outdated, which needs to be improved or replaced.
So I thought I heard you say that roughly half the population in the Allensworth area is Hispanic.
It's a little more now.
Okay.
At the time when my mother moved there, it was about half and half. But it's about 90% Latino.
Oh, 90. Are you separate groups, or is there good coordination between the?
We work together. We work together, but I'll let them speak.
Are these people engaged in what you're doing?
Some, but at the same time, let me just say this real quick, and then I'll let Sherry speak to it. But what you may not understand is, I'm a minister. I'm gone a lot. I'm farming. I'm not interacting with a lot of people. I don't have time. Do you understand? So that's why I keep pointing to them to speak to it, lest I misspeak. Okay, go ahead, Sherry.
Okay. When my mother came to Allensworth and she started seeing that the town needed much improvement, and she saw that at this point it was 70% Latino, 30% black, elderly black. And she knew she had to bridge these two groups. She went to CRPE, Center for Race,
Poverty and Environment.
And she told one of the directors there, I need your help. We need to make this work. And he helped her to bridge that community. She came in and started making improvements, a mobile medical lab started coming out, food lane, Proteus, which helped them get appliances. She helped, CRP helped her to bridge that community to become as one. And my mother died in 2018, and to this day, they still call her Mama Nettie. When they refer to her as Mama Nettie. Those are the people my age. The younger people, she had a little candy store at her house. And it was a little, really like a little box, but she would sell candy. And after school, all the kids would come over and buy candy. We had a Black History program in Allensworth, and we told the story how her selling those fish dinners and selling candy out of this little candy house, she was able to purchase this acre of land to move that church. So all the kids, well, I ain't gonna say kids because they're like in their 40s, 30s, and 40s now. But they always, oh yeah, we remember Miss Nettie. We used to go to school and we would race to go over her house. And so, in saying that, they helped her to be able to buy that acre of land just by coming buying candy after school every day. But I'm not gonna say we're all 100% on the same path, but I would say we are 90% on the same path. And we realize we all need each other.
And Sherry, one of the reasons there is a percentage of the community that's transient, so they would not know her, and they would not know anybody or hardly anyone, and so therefore they may not readily participate.
Right. And I'm gonna let Tekoa speak on it too, because he's part of the APA, and that's a team that's 98% Latino.
Again, this is a subject that, you know, I often find myself talking about. Being in what's known as a black community with a 97% Latin population, how do you guys get along? And as my aunt said, some of it is almost like innate because we grew up. You know, we spent a lot of time in Allensworth as kids. But now, it's evolved. It's evolved. We just had the flood situation in 2023, and please believe, families that didn't talk to each other,
They did.
when it was flooded, and we had to, you know, fill in these levees and all this, everybody got together. And ever since then, we've been holding it down, and we've been locked arm in arm. We've started a running club in Allensworth, which brings it even closer. We started with 13 kids, and in our very first season, we started with 18 kids. In our very first season, we took 13 kids to the national finals in Tallahassee, Florida. Came back with 3 All-Americans. Wow. In our very first season. Our second season, we came back as national champions in Allensworth. So this is bringing our community together. This synergy. It started with a disaster, but it's continuing to bring our community together. We're working with the Santa Rosa Riatachi Yokas. You know, I believe, especially in these times, we need to be more conscious of one another and one another's culture. We need to be more interested in working together and considering one another, right? Because, I mean, at the end of the day, we're all we got. At the end of the day, we're all we got. So, yeah, we work together, and we want to work with, everybody wants to work with us. How about that?
All right, I know I'm supposed to be, I got till 8 o'clock.
We can take one more, and I'd love for it to be one of my students.
So my question isn't really about what's going on right now. It's about, so you were mentioning how she bought the church or like a separate piece of land.
Yeah.
And she moved the church into that separate piece of land. I was just wondering on that process and how it worked, and if you could explain that to us.
Well, I wasn't there. I was in the military. But what I do know is she just figured out what would people buy. And a lot of people like fish. And when you have those festivals at the park, she would sell fish. And like we talked about a while ago, the children, they came by from school. Her house is right next door to the school. So the kids, it's like, here I am, here I am, here I am. And so they just came. And sometimes they would come on their way to school, and my mother would say, don't come by, go to school first. Go to school first. And so, you know, and it's amazing. We may not have money, but children usually have money. You know? and you wonder where they get it from. But so they really, the town supported the effort. And they realized it was for their benefit as well.
I'll speak just a little bit on it really quick. The park did not want, my mother, the county had given my mother permission to hold church services in the park. And she did for about 3 years. And then all of a sudden there was a change in the guards at the park. And they said, no, it's an interpretive park. We don't want that here in the park. So my mother had been collecting all this money. So she said, that's okay. That's okay. God got a plan. And she put all that little money together, and she went and bought this acre of land. And she said, well, what about the building? Take that with you too. And she did. And she did. She had that church moved down, and and over the years they were able to, once they started holding church, they had church service in the park all the way up to that church was moved out. Then once it was moved out, it continued on, and prior to that, it was held in her house or in her yard. But she was able to keep that spiritual food there for the community. And we worshiped together, Latino and blacks. They was in the choir, everybody sung with each other, Like I said, that wasn't a real issue. It really wasn't.
So I'm glad my sister and nephew are here. They were not featured, but they were featured. And so, but real quick, just to let you know, things are continuing to happen as if the people have not changed, as if people have not learned, as if people have not matured. For instance, we recently found out that a water district has petitioned the, I guess, LAFCO for annexation and to Alpa, and we weren't contacted. And this annexation, what it will do is go all around Allensworth. Now, nobody wants to be blocked in. Nothing has changed. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that's why it is important to be in relationship, because you don't ever know when you're going to need one another. All right, I'm not going to preach. Thank you.
Thank you.